What's up, everyone? It's your boy CJ Stroud here. Just grateful for this win, for all the fans coming out. Thankful to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ having this opportunity to come out here and play. Got the dub. So go Texans, on to the next one.
CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans taking care of business as expected on Monday Night Football, 34-10 over the hapless, nay, moribund Dallas Cowboys, who remain winless at home and beyond winless at home. I believe I saw a stat that they've lost by 20, at least 20, or been down by at least 20 points in every single game this season. And that's, if you want to take it back a little further, one of the worst Cowboys home games in the history of the franchise back in January in the playoffs. So this has been a doomed year for the Dallas Cowboys, and especially at Jerry World, where the roof is literally falling in. For the Texans, it's getting right and moving forward at 7-4 and atop the AFC South. Dan Hanzus here with Marc Sessler. Heeding that call, Justin Graver along as well. And Mark, we'll get into the absurd Dallas Cowboys season, which is completely off the rails, and it's really incredible how poorly they've played, especially at home. But for the Texans, a very important get-right game for them. Not a flawless performance by any means, in a game that was actually closer than the final score indicates, but at the same time, they got the dub, and they shake off some ugliness in recent weeks.
Yeah, just to quickly touch on that stat, it's 20-plus points in 6 straight games. That's never happened to a team in pro football. And they have led for 2 minutes and 15 seconds total in the last 6 games. So that's ugly. And I think tonight, you can pick this up in some of these contests where it's it's unusual for a Cowboys contest, but this was a Texans crowd. And it was a large contingent of Texans fans that showed up. And I think I felt in the middle of this some sort of disappointment around CJ Stroud, because I just had thought he would come out and electrify the league this year. But what I thought was important tonight was that the rest of the Texans stepped up. I thought Joe Mixon, who is reborn and having this season, really his best season to date, and he is the fireball on this team and set the tone very early against a wanting, scattered Texans rush defense right away. And then it was guys like Derek Stingley. You get Nico Collins back. And Nico Collins, to me, kind of feels like in that Dallas stadium, like a Michael Irvin type figure. He's 6'4", he's 222. He had a huge catch early in the game. He had the one that was taken away, but then Joe Mixon scores on the big play. And so they did enough. The score to me doesn't indicate where we are with the Texans, but I thought their defense really stepped up tonight. And that's where they're really well coached. I've got some issues with their offense, but Derek Stingley, Danielle Hunter, Derek Barnett, these guys came and put a hurt on the Cowboys, and the Cowboys season is long gone. But to lose to the Houston Texans, if you're Jerry Jones, that is just an ultra slap in the face.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. But the dignity, and this is, with the Cowboys, it's all gone. There's so many indignities that have piled up on the Cowboys throughout the season, that getting beat by the Texans, at least the Texans are a good team. I think Jerry probably has more of an issue. That is, I just did a cursory Google search. Houston is 239 miles away from Dallas. That's a 3.5-hour car ride, which, by the way, is nothing for Texans. Those people in Texas, my wife's from Texas, they drive to grandma's on a Sunday, and they just hop in the car for 3 hours.
I did that drive with Gonzo, and during that incredible Super Bowl road trip article that 4 people read. So, there was that too.
So the fact that building, which, quite literally, they planned to have the roof open, and giant slabs of metal were falling down and raining down on the field and almost killing TV field producers. It's like, what the fuck? The Cowboys are just an absolute disaster this year in all ways, and it's almost on a comical level. But my point being is that Jerry, on top of it all, now he's seeing all these Houston Texans fans filing into his mecca of football, and it just tells you, even after the last Joe Mixon touchdown late in the fourth quarter, and he's just wandering over with a big smile and slapping hands with all the rich Houston Texans fans that were in those like silly suites that are on the field level where you can't even see the field, but it does show that you're very rich. So it also does have a purpose for a certain type of American. But the point being, yes, it's become an absolute farce for the Dallas Cowboys. The Texans, yeah, CJ Stroud, not since my 2018 fantasy ownership of Matt Ryan have I been so disappointed in a player that I put so much investment in. I thought Stroud, and I said it early before we started the season, Mark, when we talked about what did we predict for this year. I thought the Texans were going to have the best offense in the league potentially. I thought Stroud could be a guy who could throw for like 40 touchdowns. That's not who they are, and obviously the injury to Nico Collins, who's now back, as you said, which is huge. And then what happened, obviously, with Stephon Diggs going out for the year with the knee injury, that set them back. They just are not a dynamic passing offense, and that's why Joe Mixon has been even more of a godsend to this team, because I don't really know where the Texans would be this year if they didn't have Mixon to stabilize things. He was pretty much unstoppable in this game. The Cowboys looked totally overmatched when he had the ball in his hands. He scored 3 times in the game, well over 100 yards of total offense. So he is the engine of this offense, even if we thought that was not going to be how it played out. And that's okay. I mean, as long as someone is stepping up, if it's going to be Joe Mixon in a revitalized bounce-back year, so be it. And the big play of the game obviously occurs with 12:31 to go in the fourth quarter. Despite the domination mark of Houston in this game, it's still just 20-10, and the Cowboys have the ball with a chance to cut it down to a one-score game. And there was just a Derek Barnett scoops up a fumble after who had the hit? Was it Petrie that had the hit? It was a play where Cooper Rush gets hit, the ball pops out, an offensive liner for the Cowboys recovers it, then he gets smoked, ball pops out again, Barnett scoop and score, and all of a sudden it's 27-10, and the game is over at that point. So that was the turning point in this game, a game that should have been a blowout, but actually wasn't until that moment.
Yeah, and it was Barnett who had the strip, and it was their first defensive touchdown of the year. And, they kept repeating over and over that Houston's offense cannot score in the second half. They've been very slow. And that's what's different, like when I think about the Joe Mixon Super Bowl year with the Bengals, where what they did in a patented sort of trademark way in the second half of those games was hammer people with Joe Mixon. And they're missing that right now. And the Texans have it, but they do seem to me, and I don't want to belabor the fact that they just put up 34 points, but there were little tiny things that I think they could just be more complete. Like, you get the Nico Collins touchdown called back. Why? Because the Texans are one of the most flagged teams on offense in the league. Like, let's work on that. You can create more opportunities. Like, there's the backward pass to Rico Dowdle early that we texted about, 3 of us and Justin. Like, why don't you challenge that? That seemed to me to be an obvious chance for a turnover.
Layup.
Right, and like they didn't, but they're a well-coached team, but it's like, why didn't you do that? And there's a Kalen Bullock dropped interception, and he's been a turnover machine, but like there's these little moments where it's like they could have absolutely blown the doors off, and ultimately they did because they played a terrible team, but it's like the Texans aren't going to play the Dallas Cowboys every week. So I want to see these little tiny things change and grow. They came off a loss to the Jets. They were nipped by the Detroit Lions. Like, this was an important win no matter who the opponent was. And I mean, Mixon talked about that after the game, that it was a rugged, violent week of practice after losing to the Lions. And I think it showed tonight that it was more of a complete game because the defense was involved in a very important way. But I want to just see these little things change for the Texans because I don't know. I'm just a little bit concerned about them, a little disappointed.
Yeah. I mean,
disappointed is strong. I just think like
tonight,
I thought they were like an AFC title team, and it's like, you're not at that level. You're kind of like the next tier or tier down in the AFC.
I mean, in the defense of Stroud, he threw the one bad interception in this game in the first half. But if that initial long touchdown to Collins doesn't get called back, his numbers look a lot better. And ultimately, like, quarterback's job is to get their team in the end zone. And Joe Mixon was getting the touchdowns, but that didn't mean that C.J. Stroud didn't play a key role on the touchdown drive. So statistically, fantasy-wise, yes, he continues to be a disappointment. But the Houston offense, I thought, was okay in this game. Yes, still room for growth, but they are playing in a division where they're going to benefit from having some room to play with. The Colts just barely got by the Jets yesterday to get to 5-6, so they're ahead 2 games in the loss column as we are a week away from Thanksgiving. So Texans are in a good spot right now, and if Collins can stay healthy, I think the offense and Stroud, it's going to get better because it's been flatlined for so long. He only has like a couple touchdown passes in the last month. It's just That's very surprising. The other kind of strategic thing probably worth talking about here before we move on and hit some news in the NFL, Mark. Cowboys are down 10 points in this game with 4:16 to play in the third quarter. A drive stalls, but Brandon Aubrey is maybe the best kicker in the league now, certainly the most powerful in terms of combining power and accuracy. At this stage, they send him out to the field for a 64-yard field goal, which he pipes. He kicks it, clears it probably about 5 yards or so. That record, by the way, it's only a matter of time now. The Justin Tucker 66-yard field goal record that he set a couple years back, that is going to be eclipsed probably by the end of the season would be my prediction, probably by Brandon Aubrey. But anyway, he hits him from 64 yards, but then the flags come out, and it's a head slap foul by Texans defensive lineman Derek Barnett, and Mike McCarthy decides to take points off the board. So it's back down. Instead of a 7-point game, kicking it to the Texans late in the third quarter, it stays a 10-point game. They take the points off the board, and if this wasn't symbolic of the Cowboys season, it backfires. They do get it inside the red zone, but then on 4th and 2, things go sideways, and they end up getting no points out of it. So I saw some criticism of Mike McCarthy, and obviously he's a big target now, and I think he's coaching his final games with the Cowboys now. But we're trying to win, and we're trying to score touchdowns. I didn't have a big issue with it, but taking points off the board and also taking a 64-yard field goal off the board, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if you're inside the building when you are also, collaborating and working with a special teams coach, and you took that field goal, a 64-yard field goal off, like, it's a little bit of a miss. They had a fake punt that went awry. They've got a bad Cooper Rush interception. I would have kept the points just based on what they're dealing with in general. But like parsing the Cowboys' destruction at this point is kind of like You could point at anything. And, I'm at the point where it's like it's tedious to almost like ponder their complete collapse. And like watching Mike McCarthy on the sideline, these are long weeks, and it can't end soon enough this season. And then at the end, to watch Zach Martin, their biggest warrior, down on the field on one knee in a hand, and like, I don't know. It's one of the worst football seasons based on what the expectations were that you could cook up.
That was, and yeah, by the way, speaking of fantasy owners, if you were about to bank 6 points or 5 points off that Brandon Aubrey field goal, or like our producer had 1.5 field goals for Aubrey in this game to cash a bet on underdog. Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, McCarthy has that look now. He's got the 1,000-yard stare that all coaches have. Doug Peterson has it as well, where it's no longer a question of if, it's when. And McCarthy probably makes it to the end of the year, because what's the point? There's really no saving the season, but he is absolutely cooked, and that's yet another very interesting job posting for Bill Belichick or whoever else will be up for a gig. Any other thoughts on this one, Mark, before we turn the page and I take a peek at the Houston Texans' upcoming schedule?
Not too many, other than I like watching the Manning cast when like the game is just sort of losing its footing. And Belichick they have on in the first half each of these weeks, and he's great. And it's like they've got to figure out what to do with actual broadcasts, because you could just sit there and bathe in that. But I did notice Belichick complimenting like some of the Cowboys drafts and little Cowboys elements that I was like, okay, we'll see what What are we doing here? Like, I think you're trying to curry favor with a team that we all see as lost, but you're pointing out the positives. So
Yeah, people say, oh, Bill would never go to Dallas with Jera there. It's like, Parcells went there. And if Parcells went
absolutely,
there, Belichick would go there. In fact, Belichick and Parcells, whether they want to be or not, are always going to be tied together in history. And Belichick has followed Parcells. Let's see. Let's go through it. Let's see. Parcells is the head coach of the Giants when Belichick was the DC when they won 2 Super Bowls. Parcells eventually went to New England, and then Belichick eventually went to New England.
Went back to New England after Cleveland.
Yeah,
Parcells.
and then Parcells,
New York Jets,
resigned from the Jets. Bill Belichick resigned as HC of the NYJ.
That's where they seem to maybe part ways a little bit.
Well, Parcells did walk away from the Jets as well, and then Parcells ended his coaching career with the Dallas Cowboys, taking a bag, a massive amount of money, and the promise from a desperate owner and Jerry Jones to let's get back to the Super Bowl. Jerry's going to be in a desperate place again this offseason. I see it as the Cowboys or the Giants for Belichick. That's just how it feels for me.
I'm with you. I think the Giants, and it's like, it's not a great thing for Brian Daboll, but the Giants I've always felt were the number one, but Dallas just looms. They absolutely loom. And like, I don't see like Bill Belichick going to, and we'll talk about it down the road, like a Jacksonville or something. It's like he wants to be in the good old NFC East and be part of the biggest matchups on the biggest stage. Because it's not 8 more years of Bill Belichick. It's a couple more.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll spin through the news. Heed the call. Dan Hanzus and Marc Sessler is on Underdog, so why not start playing on Underdog today? It's not just the NFL. The NBA is back. You got the NHL. You got college sports. So many options. So don't miss out. Download and play on the Underdog app. Sign up with the code HTC and receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Make the most of this NFL season by playing along on Underdog for our U.S. audience only.
Welcome to a very special edition of Walken with Giants. My auditory love letter to pro football's great Tiffany franchise, the New York Giants.
I love this show. Every week listen.
The time has come to say goodbye to Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes is no more. Cast to the dustbin of Big Blue history after Monday's announcement by the bald man, maybe the bad man, Brian Daboll. Everyone knows my feelings on the quarterback position of my beloved Giants. I stand with Eli Manning,
of course,
and will forevermore. Daniel Jones, he was nothing but an Elijah poser, an imposter, a pretender, a fraud, a walking hoax. Danny Dimes, far too rich. Danny Nickel, still too generous. Jack. Danny Pennies, now we're getting closer. Since if you want a penny for my thoughts, the Italian boy from Livingston should have been starting behind center weeks ago. No matter, the past is the past, and we move forward into a mysterious tomorrow. That is the tomorrow I have always preferred. Walking out!
Unbelievable. That's a great app. Walking with Giants.
Yeah, good show.
And you get the idea, Mark, that Christopher Walken, the famous Oscar award-winning, iconic actor and huge, diehard Giants fan, was waiting a long time to drop that ep, dancing on the grave of Daniel Jones, who was demoted to third-string quarterback officially on Monday in a move that is for injury protection, so his contract does not become guaranteed, which means the Giants are cutting the cord, no more guaranteed money. Tommy DeVito, yes, that's the Italian boy from Livingston, is the new starting quarterback, and it is Drew Lock who's the backup QB. So Dimes is done in Gotham. Your thoughts, Marc Sessler?
Well, it's the most telling to me that you paid Drew Lock $5 million. And, we were in an off-season period where there were a lot of whispers that maybe they wanted just to use Drew Lock as their starter out of the gate in this season, and they didn't do that, and now they're not playing him. So it's a massive tank job for the son of Deion Sanders or someone. I mean, this is where it's going. My question is inside the building,
or Bill Belichick.
Or Bill Belichick, right? Because inside the building, if you're Brian Daboll or you're Joe Schoen, the GM absolutely ultra annoyed the owner by moving on from Saquon Barkley, which is a in-the-face embarrassment for the Giants.
And going on the Giants, who for years, it's ironic because as someone who covered Hard Knocks, the Giants for years were one of the teams we have no interest in doing a show like Hard Knocks. That's not how we operate. We are a Tiffany franchise. And then the one year they decide to do it, it happens to coincide with this terrible decision that the organization made that's now forever preserved on celluloid, the decision that they made, and the confidence / arrogance in the thought that, hey, we got to let him walk because we kept the quarterback. And now you fast forward 3 months, Mark, and they're both going to be gone.
They're both going to be gone, and the second miscalculation or wasn't a mission failed for Joe Schoen was they tried, and it's a tough team to do it with, but they tried to trade up with the Patriots for that third pick. That would have been Drake May, and that would have changed everything we're talking about right here. And the one thing that my one feeling when I watch Giants games, and I know I've been a little too my glowing attitude towards them, and I think Christopher Walken has a little bit of hope inside of him still about the Giants and pride, but that's all gone at this point for me. But I do think that Brian Daboll is a quality coach. That I do. And now if it's like this or Bill Belichick, I get it. And Brian Daboll has been put in a bit of a tough spot. This roster has been banged up. I think if you're Danny Dimes, you've been banged up. The people around you have been banged up outside of the playoff season. But I guess you move on from Brian Daboll. I guess it's automatic. But I really do think he's a pretty decent coach. Who's a good offensive coach. That's my one little fly in the ointment is just simply that. Other than that,
I know we keep saying that, but it's been
I just feel that way. I'm not saying
pretty bad 2 years now, and yeah, the quarterback not being up to snuff plays a role in that. But I guess we both in there, Mark, with coaches or front office officials that, well, the results aren't there, but we like these guys. I think he is the guy, and then the years and the sands are going through the hourglass, and you keep on staying invested in a guy that really has no proven track record as a head coach anyway. So I think Daboll's not cooked. I don't think he's definitely out, but I think, if the Giants have the opportunity to make a splash, I think they're going to, and obviously Belichick is an example of that. Let's listen to Daboll on the decision to turn to Tommy DeVito now.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'm excited to see what Tommy brings to the table. That's why he's out there, Pat. Again, we had a lot of conversations, studied a lot of stuff, and again, have confidence in Tommy, and that's the reason why he's in there.
And I don't really need to hear any of that, Mark, because this is where
to me
becomes
that's hot air.
Farce.
Right?
Yeah, because Tommy DeVito, he has no future, long-term future of the Giants. The Giants are now actively turning the page on both the era quarterback and on the season. And he's just a guy that, let's be real, who I think was on the roster bubble in the summer and probably is not as good a quarterback as Drew Lock. But if they're looking to get a top 3 pick, you put in Tommy DeVito. And so the tank is on. So these are tough times. I mean, between the Jets and the Giants, my God, this is the worst year in the history of New York City football.
It is. I was thinking about this because I would say New York gets the number 1 prize, but let's call them the New Jersey football teams if people want to go down that road. But the Jets and Giants are the ugliest combo of kind of brother teams, but then you'd have to look at the 2 Ohio teams and say that's gotten ugly too. So these teams that are from the same state, it's been a rough road. But I'm with you. I think it's inglorious that they even make Brian Daboll comment on this. And in fact, I don't know how this would entirely work, but the NFLPA almost could get involved with something like this when you just take your starting quarterback who is the clear best quarterback you have, and just move him to the third guy, and he's not injured, and like we're clear, you're tanking, and don't try to. I don't want to hear poetry and a bunch of nonsense. You're tanking.
They're also protecting themselves financially, and this is something.
I get that, but it's
now
like,
it's happened. What happened with Derek Carr? Who else did it happen with? It was Carr last year, or the year before.
The RG3 this happened to. I remember when he had a lot of injury guaranteed money tied up, and that was going south with the relationship. But so you see it, and there's precedent for it. It's just like don't try
business.
to also.
It's a business decision,
right? But don't try to tell me that the NFL doesn't do this, because they do it clearly and behind closed doors in all sorts of ways. And we're at the point in the season where like stuff is getting very dark for some of these coaches. 1,000-yard stare, like you said, and like Brian Daboll's in a very bad position.
This was according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Media, our old buddy. It protects the team from next year's $23 million injury guarantee. What do they say about elections? It's about the economy, stupid. Yeah, it's about the money and the decision that Jones no longer is worth the investment that they made in him, so they are getting out. So big news out of the Giants. I think we expected it the way things ended before they went into their bye week, and now it is official. Oh, the other one was Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson last year, obviously the Broncos, as they look to eject themselves out of that situation. And they even told him that, if you remember. That was even dirtier business. It's when they were playing they were playing winning football, and they're like, hey, Russ, by the way, if you don't agree to some alteration, I think in the language of his contract or whatever it was, we're benching you week 12 no matter what's going on with the team. So it's just the business side of it, and Danny Dimes is caught up in it, and the Giants are moving forward. Elsewhere. Yes, Justin?
Have you ever thought about combining Danny Dimes and Tommy DeVito? You get Danny DeVito. That's pretty fun.
That's good. That's a good one, bud. I like that.
Thanks.
I know people want to go nuts about the Tommy DeVito thing. Now he's back. That was a nice little thing. I know Giants fans, like the Giants fans that get it, actually hate Tommy DeVito. Not personally, but like Tommy DeVito didn't win those 3 games in December last year. Jaden Daniels is the quarterback of the Giants right now. We're not talking about any of this. So we don't need that again. Like, now I'll speak for the Giants fans I know in my life. Tommy DeVito and Tommy DeVito mania, and that agent kissing everybody on the face and doing the capiche thing or whatever. Like,
right.
Are we ready for more of that?
No,
I'm kind of all set, but I understand some people like it.
It
so
works.
I'm not
I think
judging.
it works once. It doesn't. The second when you try to run it out again, it's less effective. It worked once.
Who was
with
more
the guy in the hat.
excited? Yeah, who was more excited? The guy in the hat, the agent, or Tommy DeVito himself? I venture that it was the agent. Is like, wait, I get 15 more minutes of fame out of this.
Yeah, I think it's the agent.
Sean Stellato.
Heyo, Shoni Stellato. In other news, the Baltimore Ravens. This is, speaking of weird, I mean, this is strange. I never thought we'd, Mark, I know this is going to sound like heresy because he's a kicker. But in some ways, if you were to say, what is the best football player since we started doing a podcast, and it wasn't about like what's the most important position, just who did their job the best, Justin Tucker, kicker of the Baltimore Ravens, might be my pick for just the best player at what he does in the last decade plus of the NFL. So now we're at that stage that all kickers go through it. I just thought Tucker would always be immune. I don't know if it's the yips, but he's definitely in a slump. He has not been as sharp this year. He wasn't even that great last year, but now he missed 2 big field goals in a huge division game, which never happened on Sunday. And the Ravens, of course, lost that game narrowly to Pittsburgh. And now John Harbaugh is asking questions about Justin Tucker and whether, I guess, his job is safe. Here's what Harbaugh had to say.
The best option right now is to get Justin, back on point, where he's, because he's fully capable of doing it. Certainly haven't lost any confidence in Justin Tucker. You saw that on the 54-yarder that we sent him out for, and he drilled it. So that's the Justin Tucker that he wants to see, that we all want to see on every kick. And he's definitely our best option, and he's going to make a lot of kicks. I really believe that going forward. But it's up to him.
probably lost a little bit of confidence because to go from where he was to where he is now, he's now mortal. And the Ravens, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, and it's a Super Bowl or bust season, Mark. So they need Tucker to figure this out. Well,
if you're having to answer the question, we're there, right? I mean, because this question was never asked of Justin Tucker for 89%, 94% of his career. And I saw that he complained about the field conditions as well. But the opposite kicker was like 6 for 6. And so that doesn't wash with me. And I just think, like, to your point that you made on, I think Sunday, was like, look, when a kicker with no real merit starts to go south, you just replace him. But like with Justin Tucker, you're in a tougher spot because it's like, what do? You have to see it through. Like, you have to hope that, like, this is a rough, like a batter, like a rough couple of weeks or a 3 or 4 week stretch but it has gone on to last season. So I think deeper questions are being asked, but kickers are the weirdest position to try to figure out what to do with because, as our friend Wes used to say, it's like, it's so neck up. And like, I trust Justin Tucker from the neck up as much as any kicker I've ever watched. And so this is we're in unusual territory.
Yeah, nobody had, to use a kid's term, nobody had more aura than Justin Tucker. And I think that's what's missing now. Like, he was overflowing with confidence. And so that certainly has shaken. And now does he get it back? Can he get it back? The Ravens Super Bowl hopes could ride on it. It's that important. He's that important to what they do and their success in the John Harbaugh era. Let's check in with some injuries before we say goodbye. Niners defensive end Nick Bosa has an oblique injury. Those are tricky, Sessdog.
Yeah.
And it's possible he could miss time. So the Niners, who we're still waiting for the Niners to go. You take Nick Bosa off the field like he was when Geno Smith went in for that game-winning touchdown in the final seconds on Sunday. They're, again, a lesser team. And the injuries, every team gets hit with injuries, but the Niners have been especially snakebit this year.
Well, you're so right about the Seahawks game because watching that yesterday, like, the game changed when he wasn't on the field. And, they've just been so banged up. Like, that could be, we're talking about like Justin Tucker deciding like Baltimore's path through the playoffs. Like, not having a Nick Bosa could be the difference. And the Niners right now need to go win like 4 or 5 games in a row. Like, it's like the engine at some point needs to start here. And instead, with each game, it's George Kittle yesterday, it's Nick Bosa. Like, their stars, we're watching them on the sideline, watching the rest of the team play. Like, not a great formula for winning the NFC West.
Yeah, wow. They really, they desperately need that like monster CMC game just to carry them to a victory. Now let's mention an Italian American who really does have a true role in the outcome of the NFL season this year. It's Alex Anzalone, probably Italian. There's a vowel at the end. He broke his forearm on Sunday in the Lions' blowout win of the Jaguars. The hope here is that he could return for the playoffs. So he's on the slightly more expedited scale than Aiden Hutchinson, their superstar defensive end, who they hope maybe if they make it to the Super Bowl, he'll be back for that. So they have to go now through the regular season with either of those men. The Browns, in a lost season, now say goodbye to left tackle DeJuan Jones. He broke his ankle. Rap Sheet had that. Jaguars, another team, long gone. The Jaguars lose Gabe Davis, the wide receiver. He has a meniscus tear in his knee. He's done for the year. Bengals quarterback DJ Turner II, who emerged as a starter this season and was really making a lot of plays. The belief is that he suffered a fractured clavicle, according to sources via Rap Sheet. He's getting a second opinion, but if that's the case, he's done for the season. So a Cincinnati team that is reeling after another devastating loss might be without one of the key players in their secondary. And finally, we started by talking about the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, you saw him upstairs at Jerry World. He is officially on IR. His season is over. He had surgery to repair that hamstring. Tough one, Mark, with Dak. I could totally empathize. He's not down on the field. He just had leg surgery, so it's not like he can help and talk to Cooper Rush or Trey Lance or whatever. So he's up there, but he also has to pretend like he's paying attention. There are multiple points, because he's Dak Prescott, where they would cut the camera shot down over to Dak, and he'd like catch himself, and he'd like sit up in his chair and then pick up a pencil and pretend like he was doing something. Clearly not doing anything.
Yeah, you can't
probably
get
making
caught,
underdog wagers.
No, you can't get caught sitting up there eating like. Do Cracker Jacks still exist? I don't feel like I've seen Cracker Jacks.
Cracker Jacks do exist, yes.
I mean, I don't know the last
They're
time you ever
not
had
as good
them.
as they used to be, but they do exist.
I always
used to
found
be a
them
lot
to
of
be
almonds and good stuff in there, and now you basically just get the popcorn with the caramel on it. It's
with
just
the
not
salty
the same.
stuff on it. Yeah, I mean, I always found them to be slightly overrated, and it was like a tough conversation with other people. But it's like, but yeah, you can't get caught up there. I remember when Barry Switzer, when the Cowboys lost the NFC title game to the Niners back in '94. And so back then, now it's not. Now it's all fugazi. But back then, like the losing coach of the AFC or NFC title game had to go coach the Pro Bowl, which is a terrible thing. But they caught Barry Switzer in the middle of the Pro Bowl, just sitting there eating a hot dog on the sideline, and he was already under fire for being a little bit of a silly figure. And so you're right. When they cut to you on the camera, you've got to be aware and you've got to have your act together.
They got the great Sanchez on that too. His rookie year against the Raiders, they were playing a game in Oakland, and they were blowing out the Raiders, and they cut to the rookie on the sideline, and he was literally hiding the hot dog in his hand like he was Tim Robinson in a I Think You Should Leave sketch. He was even putting on the mustard. And I remember it being it was a very serious story that week that, I'll learn from this, and I know I must respect my opponent and the team. It's like dangerous, man. Plus, a stadium hot dog, you really going to risk it all for a stadium hot dog? You don't get any of the fixins
No, stay camera ready.
Anything.
That's what I tell them.
Fixins.
You need them fixins. What would you put on a hot dog? I know you're not you've dipped your toe back into carnivore land, but I feel like the processed nature of a hot dog is something you would stay away from. But maybe if you loaded up with some fixins.
Yeah, I do. I did go to a Dodgers playoff game, not this season, but last year when they were waxed by the Diamondbacks, and I did have a Dodger dog, and I recall putting ketchup on it. I didn't go crazy. I put a lot of ketchup.
Fixins?
No, I think that was
Fixins.
What about you?
If I'm at Dodger Stadium, and
I could say what's your go-to hot dog? You could.
No, if I'm at Dodger Stadium, go-to hot dog. Yeah, you give me dog. You give me spicy deli mustard. You put some sauerkraut on that, and then you just hammer it. And now if you're feeling frisky and they got some chili available, I'll throw some chili on that.
Good on that road.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
I'll put the fixins on.
Yeah, you.
Fixins.
By the way, that is week 11. That's it. Week 11's done. Now it's week 12. So make sure to be there all week. We're back on Wednesday with Connor Orr previewing Steelers Browns. Jesus Christ.
What a nightmare. No, you know what? And I won't belabor this, but it's like when you when you root for a terrible team, like all three of us do, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're talking about." It's like we're not trying to talk about these teams all the time, but it's like you have to still talk about them. But then when you shove them onto national television, and it just becomes like a stack of embarrassment pancakes just stacked on top of each other.
Oh yeah,
shoved in your face.
I was on one of the if you are a Jets fan, you probably know the Badlands podcast. Great job, Connor and Joe host that. I was a guest on their show earlier today, and they asked me. I think Connor asked me. So what for you is how would you like the rest of the season to play out? And I had to think about it. It's I've done the thing where you just root for your team to lose. I've done the scam for Sam years ago over Sam Darnold, and that's not fun. Just rooting for your team to tank is just brutal. No. But also you don't want to do the thing where you win a bunch of stupid games like Tommy DeVito did last year, and then you end up banging yourself on draft day. So my answer was, okay, it'd be cool to because it's I'm going to be real. The flagship show is a little more fun to do when your team wins. It doesn't happen a lot for Mark and I or Justin anymore, but so give me 2. I'll take 1 or 2. And then you could lose the rest, but just stop embarrassing me. Stop being such a joke. Stop humiliating the fan base. So if we could just quietly suck the rest of the way and go 5-13 and then pick in the top 5, that to me is success. And I would imagine, Mark, you would probably sign off to something similar, unless you are in tank mode, which I respect as well, because that functionally that makes a lot of sense to put yourself in the best position for whatever comes next. But yeah, that's it's like the darkest place to be when you're in that position.
It is. I want to see a sideline shot where like the entire Cleveland Browns roster and their coaching staff are eating hot dogs on the sideline at this point. Like, let's just be real about who we are, and like that would be a more entertaining.
But then but then it's like, again, you say that and it's funny, but then you'll be super annoyed when everyone's just making fun of the Browns for an entire week about, they ate the hot dogs. You know what I mean?
You're right. I would rather them just
this
quietly...
makes Jameis especially dangerous for you, by the way, because he's such a goon. And he's just a silly man that he's going to keep popping up the rest of the season. And I have a similar problem with Aaron Rodgers and all his antics. Like, can we just quietly get to January 8th?
Like, why are we just... that's the right word. Like, we have quarterbacks that are operating with antics versus just winning football games.
And Will Levis is a meme factory. Like, what's the deal with our teams and our quarterbacks and this podcast? It's like, it's just a joke.
It's a joke. Yeah. We got all the feaksons of shame this year. At least Captain Mayo, like, if he finishes strong, the Titans can, we could, that could be something we think about for, next year. Maybe as part of the future. But when you got Jameis Winston and 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, that's not even a thing. We're just running out the clock at this point.
True, but at least you're in a position to move on, whereas the Titans could be stuck in like Giants Daniel Jones territory where you're like, is he the guy? I don't know. Let's give him another season and
he'll probably be
out.
their quarterback next year, Daniel Jones.
I hope not. Oh, God.
Anyway, so yes, we got that show coming up and everything else, and we appreciate you guys listening and following along. And remember what we're trying to do. We're building up the YouTube subscription. It's such an important part of the model now, and quite frankly, it's almost the preferred method to enjoy the show at this point because of the production and the work that Justin puts in and so check it out, youtube.com/@heedthecallpod. Subscribe, 48.4, bang it out. Let's get there slowly but surely. And of course, over on patreon.com/heedthecall, new content going up every week. All right, anything else?
I don't think so, because we'll be back soon.
All right, good. I hope you guys miss us. See you soon. And remember, heed the call.